A very good afternoon, Sanbonani Mahwarase. I hope you guys are doing well and thank you for your subscription. ZANU-PF recently made an official statement about the move to extend President Mnangagwa's term. And according to Ziambi, the Justice Minister and ZANU-PF Legal Secretary announced that the party delegates at the Mutare conference instructed the government to draft legislation to amend the constitution for this purpose. And this decision was publicly endorsed at the conference with people talking about it, especially from the ZANU-PF, that if somebody is doing such a great work, why should we end his term? Right. I've seen so many conversations going on social media and people, well, from the opposition and other citizens questioning this move and asking if it is actually constitutional to amend this and what does this mean for Zimbabwe? Looking at the president's age, who is 83 years old, how old is he going to be in the next 5 years if we were to extend his term? Well, today I'm joined in by Mr. Mthulisi Hanana, who is a ZAPU's SG. And we're going to have this conversation because he's been talking about this on social media, saying no to Agenda 2030. Tulis, thank you so much for joining us. And my first question to you, why are you so against the president's next term? Isn't he doing a great job? I mean, look at our airports, the Bed Bridge, border post, and, the infrastructure development. Don't you think that he should at least be extended so that he can finish what he started?
Your listeners. I think one of the most critical things about the issue of Agenda 2030 and why we're against it was best explained by one Professor Lavo Matuku, who actually says that the issue of term limits was designed specifically for presidents that are doing well. Because if presidents are not doing so well, the people remove them from power. So I think
That's
that
right.
the excuse ZANU-PF that Mnangagwa is doing well must not be used to extend his term. In any case, if ZANU-PF is very confident that their president is doing well, I think they would, number one, allow for debate around the issue of 2030. But we have seen the banning of press conferences in Bulawayo and in Harare so that people don't have an opportunity and a chance to discuss the issue of Agenda 2030. Number two, we would have expected that if Mnangagwa is doing so well, to go to the polls in 2028 and get his mandate renewed by the people of Zimbabwe. So the argument of him doing well does not arise because there's a lot of other indicators that we can look at that show that the regime in Harare is not as good as people would want us to believe. I mean, look at the number of Zimbabweans that are still outside the country. Look at the various economic indicators. Look at the level of corruption that is in the country. Look at the state of our health institutions. Look at the quality of education that is being offered, the high number of Zimbabweans, especially the children of the eminent Zimbabweans that are learning out of the country, and look at the number of Zimbabweans that are still going out of the country for medical treatment. Look at rapid response for accident and for emergencies. I mean, we really do not have much. Look at the state of our roads, particularly these roads that have been an ISO since the early 90s. Look at your Kai Road, look at your Victoria Falls Road, look at your Bite Bridge, Bulawayo Highway, the dualization of that road. There is a lot of things that we can talk about that Mnangagwa is failing to do. But the issue of not to Agenda 2030 has nothing to do with the performance, the poor performance of Mnangagwa. It has everything to do with the constitution that the people of Zimbabwe voted for in 2013, in a referendum of 2013, where we adopted this constitution, which clearly speaks to term limits, which clearly defines the length of each presidential term. This is the contract that we had with the ZEC and all the candidates that were on the ballot in 2023, that we were voting for them to lead us for a term of 5 years. In the event that that has to be done, there should be other processes and procedures that are followed. It must not be imposed on the people. It must not be forced down the throats of people. And you would understand that I'm coming from a revolutionary party, the party that paid the ultimate sacrifice for the independence of our people. When we fought for independence, one of the things that was key was the universal suffrage, that our people, the black majority, were not allowed to vote. And we fought so that they can vote. And also fought so that their vote can be respected. The sanctity of the vote is one of the supreme things that forced us to go to the bush and fight for the country that we now have. So trying to then squeeze and change that constitution that defines the structure, the nature of elections, I think will be going against the very ethos of the liberation struggle, the very reason why it has been undermining of the reason why people died when they were fighting during the liberation struggle.
All right. Thank you so much for that and the history that you just shared. Now, I do understand that most people who are against this are speaking from diaspora, and the people who are pushing for this term extension are actually on the ground in Zimbabwe. How are you mobilizing people to block this? Is it going to be done legally? Are there people that's going to go in the street? What is the plan? I know you cannot really share your plan publicly, given what would happen, but just share with me, because most of people who are against what is happening in Zim are speaking from diaspora with good reason, of course. But how are they going to really contribute to stopping this whole thing?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how you come up with the numbers that those that are speaking are in the diaspora. I think even on the ground in Zimbabwe, there's a whole lot of people that are against the issue of Agenda 2030. Remember, in my opening remarks, I alluded to the press conferences that were meant to be held in Bulawayo and in Harare.
That's right.
That is a sign that there's people in Zimbabwe that are speaking against that. And if you look at the kind and the quality and the caliber of people that were speaking in those press conferences, they're the political elite of Zimbabwe. These are seasoned politicians, seasoned activists. Mm-hmm. These are people that have been in the political terrain for quite a long time. You speak of Ibo Mandaza, has been very vocal with Surplus Trust, who unfortunately that has come at a cost of having his offices bent down. Speak of Prince Dubego in Bulawayo, speak of Job Zikala, Tendai Biti, and ZAPU President Mthulisi Hanana was there. So there is quite a lot of consensus within Zimbabwe. So unfortunately, we will not be able to speak about the numbers of people in Zimbabwe that are talking about this because of the repression that the country is actually going through, because ZANU-PF seems to want to suppress all dissenting voices. You are not allowed to oppose. You are not allowed to have a superior logic and present it to ZANU-PF, because generally their word is law. They believe in the supremacy of their party and resolutions of their Politburo. Anyone who's not in ZANU-PF who wants to deviate from what they want to do, generally they would want to meet violence against them. So that's why you would think that people in the diaspora are the ones that are speaking. I think we speak in the diaspora because the consequences of speaking our freedom of speech is almost guaranteed. But I kid you not, most of us that are in the diaspora, if we were to set foot in Zimbabwe, we would be immediately arrested. Remember, now there is some stupid bill called the Patriotic Act that really tries to govern and set boundaries in terms of what patriotism is. So you now have somebody who wants to tell you how to love your country and what to say to if you are going to show that you love your country. But I've always said to people that it is my patriotic duty to oppose ZANU-PF, because ZANU-PF is the enemy of Zimbabweans, is the enemy number one for Zimbabweans, because Zimbabweans are living the kind of life that they're living. Zimbabweans are being called makwerekwere out of the country and being abused outside the country because of what ZANU-PF has done. So in terms of strategy, one of the things that you realize is that ZANU-PF is not afraid of interviews. ZANU-PF does not care about letters. ZANU-PF is kept at the court. They don't care about us taking their issues to court, but that we will do. We'll take them to court for posterity. We have a brother, a seasoned activist in Bulawayo, Mbuso Fuzwayo, who's also now contending to be MP in Kurumane, who has done, started the process of taking Mnangagwa to court. So these are some of the signs that the people of Zimbabwe are not happy. So we are combining efforts. We are trying to have a concerted effort around working together so that we have a pushback. And the only thing that ZANU-PF will respect is the masses. That is why they are running away from a referendum, because they know that the masses will speak unequivocally around the issue of resisting 2030. And prior to not having a referendum, what they're doing is they're making sure that we don't have space to protest or to express ourselves. And remember that these are rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. These are fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution that ZANU-PF has decided to suppress.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was looking at the numbers based on the poster that I saw that you guys had a press conference, which is Diaspora Press Conference, saying no to Agenda 2030. And I've seen people who are on the ground who are actually talking about this, and well, even within the ZANU-PF, there seem to be some sort of a division. Young people are also standing up saying, when is our time? People who were born in 1980, they were called future leaders, but right now they're in their 40s and they haven't, well, got their chance, because we have had how many presidents now? I can say officially we have had only 2 presidents since 1980. So how does this make you feel as a young person who is trying to get into leadership? The attitude of the revolutionary parties. You also come from a revolutionary party. How is the attitude in terms of young people in leadership, women in leadership? I mean, given that we want an 83-year-old president to continue till 2030.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you realize is that ZANU-PF has consolidated its power as a rural party. That is why they don't win seats in the urban setup. So, and in our rural area, that is where you find our older people. So, for me, I do not think that the issue of age is really a factor, because these old people that we see today are the youth of yesteryear.
Yes.
When they were faced with problems and the problem of the Smith regime, the problem of imperialism, they did what was needful for them at that particular time. I think instead of us as young people to complain and expecting somebody to come and give us power on a silver platter, we must have consensus in terms of what is needful, so that we change the political trajectory of the country, and also change our fortunes as young people. I doubt that there is anyone who would take power and give it to anyone simply because they are young, or they are old, or they are a woman, or they are short, or they are tall, or they are a man. Young people must do what is necessary. If the issue of 2030 aggrieves them, if the issue of the government of ZANU-PF, which, by the way, most of them have never seen a pay slip. Most of them don't know how to use an ATM. Most of them have never been employed. Most of them are graduates that paid school fees and they're getting nothing out of it. So if that grieves them, most of them are watching other young people like Wiknel Chivayo, who distributes cars like confetti, and you wonder where he gets all that kind of money. So if all these things that are happening in the country are grieving the young people, are offensive to the young people, these things must get our young people angry, so that when they're angry enough, they do that which is needful in their generation. It is up to the young people of Zimbabwe to decide the future of Zimbabwe. In any case, we're a majority. I mean, I don't think that we can be overpowered or outsmarted by the older generation. I think they didn't have as much exposure or communication mechanisms like we do. Most of them were not as educated or as learned like us, the younger generation now. I mean, we have a serious advantage in terms of where the country has gone and in terms of the global development of politics. So we really have a serious advantage, and I think we must leverage on that and have a serious discussion in terms of what we need to do to salvage the country. And I call upon young people to join us as ZAPU and other political stakeholders as we mobilize to confront our MPs. Remember, this issue of Agenda 2030 will be tabled in Parliament soon, and we want MPs that are going to go to Parliament and speak on behalf of the people. So we're organizing groups that are going to be visiting their local MPs to petition them to speak on their behalf. I mean, MPs must collect these views and go to Parliament and say the people are against the issue of 2030. And they are asking that if we want to go through with it or go ahead with it, let's call for a referendum so that they can express themselves. We are going to be visiting all our 210 elected officials to convince them, to negotiate with them, and to appeal to their consciences to do the right thing. And those that are not going to vote with their consciences, or those are not going to vote and express what the people on the ground are saying, we are going to be protesting against them, because they cannot represent people or purport to represent people and then go to Parliament and represent themselves and other interests that do not reflect what the people want on the ground.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And also you mentioned that the issue of accountability, holding these MPs accountable as well, because towards elections, they came up with all the list of things that they were going to do. Have they fulfilled that? We need to also have our own checklist. And I love what you mentioned about young people. Nobody's going to give you power. No one. They fought, the older generation fought to be on that position. They fought the war of liberation, and we cannot sit back and just expect that power is going to give in to us. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And you also highlighted the issue of ZANU-PF is more in the rural areas. How are you as ZAPU and other opposition groups getting in the rural, because the rural areas have most of the majority of our people are based there, and ZANU-PF have got a stronghold. That's not a lie. I remember in Masvingo, there's a certain rural area I was at. People wake up around 6 a.m. to go to a meeting. They were there. They tabled whatever grievances they had to their leaders, who are ZANU-PF, by the way. And what are you doing as opposition to make sure that you have got the people? If they only see ZANU-PF ministers, that's what they are going to vote for. So what are you doing as opposition and as a leader to make sure that you get the vote from the rural people?
I cannot speak for other political parties, but for example, we adopted what is called a direct constituency penetration. So the issue of direct constituency penetration is a political mobilization strategy, where instead of holding big rallies in rural areas or in any place, we go to the constituencies, we engage villagers, so that maybe in a village you might find us having maybe 2-3 meetings of 20, 30, 40 people under trees. Those small meetings are good for engagement. We're able to talk with the villagers and engage and hear them out. And we can have a discussion, we can have a conversation, as opposed to what most political players would do, where they'll just go to a rally, and when they get to a rally, they just chant slogans and make promises, and then they go away.
Give them
That's why
T-shirts.
you find maybe in some places we have opposition leaders that will promise bridges where there's no rivers. They will promise a lot of things that are not relevant to their life in rural areas. So ZAPU at the moment is being led by President Mnangagwa, who has done exceptionally well in terms of visiting rural areas and meeting people. You discover that in 2023, ZAPU actually won a seat in the areas that we were chosen to focus on, where we tried the issue of direct constituency penetration. And you discover that there's quite a number of council seats that we lost by 3, 4 votes, 6 votes, some 40 votes, which shows that between 2018 and 23, when we adopted the issue of direct constituency penetration, we used that strategy for about a year. There was serious increase or serious growth in terms of our support base. And after the elections, we have not stopped. As we speak today, I mean, in the past week, the president of ZAPU was in Mat North, where he had about 11 meetings of direct constituency penetration in Mthulisi North, where he met with different villagers. So when you look at the number of villagers that we interact with a week, you discover that we interact with almost 2,000 villagers in 1 week, and we do that week in, week out, party to engage those people that are in the rural areas. Whilst I, as General, if you have noticed, I have been running what is called chillers with Nobala, where we call young people in urban setup so that we chill. We get 20, 30, 40, 50 young people. We sit down, we have conversations and discuss matters that are relevant to the country. And they give us views to say, as young people, we need this kind of Zimbabwe. As young people, the kind of Zimbabwe that we want is this one, and the kind of party that we want is this one. So if you want to join ZAPU, please change here, change there, do this, do that. And after we started these processes, the party is growing significantly. Between 2009 and 2018, the party was growing at an average of 3% per election cycle. But now, between 2018 and 2023, we are growing at a rate of about 5%. And I can assure you that when we get to the next election cycle, ZAPU should be able to get an average of 15% of the total vote of the country, which is a huge leap forward, looking at the issue of direct constituency penetration. The only challenge that we have is the issue of resources, because ZAPU is self-funded. We, the members of ZAPU, we pay subscriptions, we contribute money to run party programs. ZAPU is not donor at the moment. ZAPU has no Zigananda. ZAPU has doesn't have foreign aid, doesn't receive foreign aid from anywhere. So I'm sure that once we win 2-3 seats and we are able to get a share of the political funds as well, we should then be able to consider those resources, what we have, and grow at a much larger rate. But we are grateful to ZANU-PF for misgoverning the country, because the people are frustrated. We are grateful even for other opposition players that have had the advantage for a long time and they failed to deliver on their promise and their mandate. People have now realized that they need to go back home, and the home of politics, the cradle of politics in Zimbabwe, as we all know, is ZAPU. We are seeing a lot of people joining the party in droves, and that is a sign and testament that we are doing a good job on the ground.
Okay, thank you so much. So if people were who want to contribute to your programs, how do they get in touch? And is there any account they can send in money, or how do they contribute?
For people to get in touch with us, I mean, we're one of the most well-organized parties in the country, very democratic, I must say. When we go for congresses, which, by the way, we do on a regular basis, we're not afraid of power change or power struggles. We're able to contain all that, and we're due for Congress in 2026. Other parties don't go for Congress. And when we get to Congress, we don't endorse candidates, we vote. I mean, most political parties go to Congress to endorse their presidents, because you can't oppose a president. You must always agree to whoever the powers that be put for you, whether it's in opposition or it's in ruling ZANU-PF. That's the standard. But ZAPU is a strong institution. We don't believe in strong men. We believe in a strong institution. So because of that, our party is a Treasurer-General that is in charge of our funds, and we actually have the party, for administrative purposes, is divided into 3 zones. We have the northern region, which covers Mashonaland except Masvingo, because Masvingo is part of the southern region. Then we also have the diaspora, and we have accounts in the diaspora and for our members to contribute, and we have accounts in Zimbabwe. So if anyone wants to contribute, you may share my numbers with them, and I'll direct them to also have a website. They can send us messages on ZAPU.org. Yeah.
Or I think you broke up in the last 30 seconds or so, but I will share your details in the description so that those who wants to contribute they can do that. Can you name one specific program that you guys are doing in rural areas that is not really part of the campaign? Any empowerment program that you see this is something that is fit for people to directly contribute towards that?
We have in Matabeleland is in the Matabeleland where we actually have a seat, because before we go out of the constituents where we're governing, we must set an example. There's a number of things that we are doing there. One is the issue of water. We are working on drilling boreholes in the area of Matobo Mangwe, where we have a seat there. We have also been instrumental in assisting the villagers to build classroom blocks, because also, we have an issue of education that is a big problem. Most of our young people learn under trees and stuff like that. So we have just concluded a building project where we were assisting the community to build a classroom block. And remember, these are community initiatives, and ZAPU goes in there to participate. And there is also an ongoing project where there is a clinic that is still under construction. So we are doing that. And then the other thing is the issue of connectivity. We are working on putting Wi-Fi centers in different parts of the ward that we are neighboring wards where we want to make sure that our people have connectivity. You remember that there's always been an outcry that people of Matabeleland don't apply for certain things because some of these things are applied online. So because of the problems with data and connectivity, people have to get into a bus, go to Bulawayo, or go to Gwanda, or go to where there is network and apply. So we are trying to mitigate that by making sure that we take connectivity to the people. So these are some of the programs that we are doing in the interim. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll share your details so that if there's anybody here who wants to contribute, they can always get in touch with you. Thank you so much for your time and the great work that you are doing for the people of Zimbabwe. Just in 30 seconds, is there anything that you want to share with the citizens of Zimbabwe in diaspora regarding the Agenda 2030?
I want just to conclude by saying the issue of opposing Agenda 2030 must not be left to us, the politicians, must not be left to the activists only. It must be something that we do together as a collective, as Zimbabweans, regardless of political party, tribe, race, or gender, or even age. Let's come together as Zimbabweans and find ourselves located somewhere in resisting the issue of 2030, regardless of where you are domiciled, whether in Zimbabwe or you are in the diaspora. Particularly those of us that are in the diaspora, let's make sure that we give this issue maximum publicity, and we also support with resources, because once we mobilize for things like protests and stuff like that, we will need to make sure that our people on the ground are well resourced. Let's also support all our vocal people in terms of our members of parliament. 2030, when we get to that point, let's give them maximum exposure and maximum publicity so that the world knows that we still have people that have Zimbabweans at heart. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That was Mthulisi Hanana from ZAPU. Let us keep on engaging, and thank you for your subscription.